That's right, folks. It's another episode of the Razzball Fantasy YouTube channel, podcast, whatever you want to call it. Key injuries you need to know, the QB carousel. I feel like I want to sing, and I got to Minshew, do. That's like awesome. That just came to my mind. Today, we're going to be talking about some of the key injuries that are going to impact your fantasy, focused on quarterbacks. There are so many new quarterbacks and a couple new ones starting this week. Before we do, I want to make sure you follow us across the board at Razzball Fantasy on YouTube, IG, and TikTok. We would really appreciate if you catch this video. Hit the subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment. We've been doing this all off season long, even after season's done. Second, make sure you jump over to Razzball.com. We have great writers. I have fantastic writers that write every single week. We have one that's joining the show today that's dropping knowledge, every single thing for you need, from waiver wires to target projections, IDP. We have it all over on Razzball.com. And the best part, too, is we don't just do football. We do baseball, hockey, and basketball as well. So go check it out over at Razzball.com. And, of course, make sure you join us at the Razzball Fantasy Start-Sit Show. This week, folks, it's going to be on Saturday. We're having a little Saturday fever with all the games on Saturday. Join us tomorrow, Saturday, December 24th, starting at 8:30 a.m. PST or 11:30 a.m. Eastern. We're going to be dropping knowledge on the Start-Sit Show for Saturday. So join us tomorrow to get all your Start-Sit questions. But today's show, let's break down the QB carousel and how these injuries will impact your fantasy team, starting right now on the Razzball Fantasy YouTube channel. All right, at this point, I feel like me and Gladys are girlfriends. We go out every Friday. We join the Razzball Fantasy YouTube channel, and instead of dancing, we talk football. Gladys L. Tyler, my right-hand woman. How are you? You can follow her on Twitter at Gladys L. Tyler. What's going on?
Hey, not much. How are you doing? You are way excited. I am. I'm like, I don't even know how to keep up with that kind of energy. I'm not gonna lie.
That's awesome, Gladys. You bring me down. I like this. So you bring me down the level. I'm a little bit too energetic right now. Honestly, it's at this point, I got to tell you, I've talked to Gladys a little off air about some of my tight end streamer issues. This whole week, I am filled with more useless tight end knowledge, and I need to take a break and focus today on some of these key injuries. So yesterday, a lot of quarterback injuries, and we just kind of sometimes, maybe in some cases, we overreact to these QB issues and we fade players we shouldn't, or in some cases, are there actually going to be players that are going to be impacted by these changes? So there's a couple we're going to talk about today. Before we get into these players, Gladys, any thoughts heading into week 16? Any situation that's kind of in your forefront, or you just want to just get into it?
No situation in my forefront. I have to play, I had a buy in 2 weeks and then 2 leagues, and I lost in a league I didn't have a buy-in, and because I overthunk things and put players in that I shouldn't have. And
what did you do? Tell me your overthink. Give me your number one overthink. What was it?
I took out Josh Palmer and put in Alex Pierce, who had no, and it was, and I don't feel bad because it was a good matchup. And then I took out Lutz and put in Young Hoku. And if I'd played Lutz, I would have won, I think, because his team he was the number one guy, but his team never showed up. But I didn't, and I couldn't. When we talked about it Sunday, remember I asked you Young Hoku or Lutz?
Yeah, it was like 1 point difference.
I tried to put them in, and the CBS doesn't allow you to make changes the day of. So CBS Fantasy Sports, you suck. I just want to say that. And
shots fired. Oh yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
This week it's gonna be all right.
So I have been a huge Justin Fields guy. I have been a Justin Fields truther, and all the guys on the show on Sunday told me that I need to start Justin Herbert, and I was the only one like, no.
You were.
Well, that was a bad decision because I went -10. I still somehow won by a handful of points. I was so mad.
Who had -10? Justin Fields?
No. Justin Fields finished with 25 points. Justin Herbert finished with 15. So I lost 10 points because of that switch. And I played Justin Herbert because I suck, Gladys. That's why. I am the worst. I am the worst with this stuff. You got to see me. I have literally picked up every waiver wire tight end this week. I don't even know what the hell I'm doing anymore. All right, let's get into it. All right. Okay. So the key injuries let's talk about today. Number one I want to talk about first is Trey McSorley with the Arizona Cardinals. This kid's out of Penn State.
Yes.
You know, he was out of the Ravens for a couple years. He's been kind of a little bit of a preseason darling. Shows a little flashes of mobility. The one thing that I noticed right off the bat last week was that Trace McSorley has a little more zip and pop on his throws than Colt McCoy. Colt McCoy sits in the pocket, you know, gets the ball out of his hands quickly. That's super nice. But McSorley was a little more aggressive, I think, when he played a little bit. But here's some notable things that I thought were interesting.
Okay.
He does. So in college, he played at Penn State, played with his number one wide receivers were KJ Hamler and Chris Godwin. But the thing I thought was very interesting was Mike Gesicki and Pat Freiermuth had very good seasons in college with him. He actually targeted them a lot. Mike Gesicki, 48 receptions, 679 yards, 5 touchdowns. The second season, he had 9 touchdowns. And then the third year, he had Pat Freiermuth, who had 8 touchdowns. So he was really targeting the tight ends a lot. And that translated a little bit in the game last week. McBride came alive against Denver. 2 of the targets were with McSorley. He did have 43 yards and 1 really big catch. So, obviously this is a part of my psychopathic travel down. Trey McBride was in my search for a tight end. I did think about it for a minute because I'm like, there is something here when you look at the history of it. But overall, Hopkins paced the team with 3 targets. And James Conner had 3 targets, but really it didn't look pretty with McSorley. And then also I thought was notable, Juwan Johnson played at Penn State, was also pretty productive with McSorley. So there might be something there for a deeper name like Trey McBride. But overall, I guess the real question is for this one, are you sitting James Conner, DeAndre Hopkins, Marquise Brown? What's your thoughts on these guys?
So Marquise Brown, yes. Marquise Brown to me is a sit, mainly because he has okay, here's the thing that I found that was really interesting. Both D-Hop and Marquise Brown have the same ADOT. They have 9.3 as their same ADOT, but D-Hop has way more yards after catch, which is what McSorley is going to need because it's going to be quick dump offs. So I'm not sitting D-Hop if I had him. I'm not sitting James Conner because I think that since week 10, Tampa Bay's allowed the 12th most rushing yards, and Conner is a volume play, and you got to think that, I mean, who knows what Cliff Kingsbury is going to do because he's like in that desperation, oh my God, I don't want to get fired kind of thing going on too. So he really needs to win this game. So it's going to go, they're going to funnel it through your 2 best players, and that's Conner and D-Hop. And I would, if I set either one of them and they don't go off, I'm okay with that. Because McSorley isn't outrageously bad, No. I mean, his stats aren't that bad. So D-Hop, yes. Hollywood, no. James Conner, yes. And McBride, I'm sorry, I'm not playing him.
I know. Let me tell you though, I got you thinking a little bit with that Penn State stuff. I don't know, man. Yeah, I agree. Listen, James Conner's an absolute workhorse. He actually produced against San Francisco just a few weeks ago, and no one produced against San Francisco. He always finds the end zone, and I think the key that you just brought up was, Cliff Kingsbury's playing for his job. So he's going to play his studs even with the 3rd string quarterback. He needs to show that this team's still fighting for him because if they aren't, he could lose his job. So I think I'm in on Conner. D-Hop, listen, I expect them to shadow him with Charlton Davis, like similarly Davis did last week with Chase. But I think he can win that matchup just a couple times, and similar to what Chase did last week. But overall, I mean, listen, Trey McBride, folks, I'm not going to play him, but if he goes off, you remember where you heard it here first. All right, let's jump down to the next one. It's the Indianapolis Colts and Nick Foles. And I'll tell you right now, I think there's a little bit of misconception about Nick Foles. He actually isn't terrible. Like, Nick Foles had some moments, of course. I know a long time ago with the Eagles, the great Super Bowl run. But even recently, if you look at Nick Foles, he is capable of having a solid receiver. And so I wanted to take a look back. Last year, he played 1 start. He threw for 250 yards and a touchdown in that game. He targeted Montgomery 9 times in Chicago, of course. Darnell Mooney, 9 targets, and Cole Kmet went 4 for 49. Those 3 guys had okay days. Mooney went 5 for 50, 7. Montgomery was an absolute monster. He had 7 catches for 61 yards. I think that Nick Foles can support good talent. Like, I think if you're a good player, he's going to get you the ball. And I don't think he's going to be a complete dud. And the one thing that gets me excited a little bit about Michael Pittman, because of this, is Allen Robinson in 2020 in the 7 starts with Nick Foles averaged 6.4 receptions and 75 yards per game. Where Nick Foles falls short is he doesn't really score a lot of touchdowns. He only had 7 touchdowns in 7 games. Maybe Chase McLaughlin comes back for a repeat and drops some field goals for us on Monday night. But overall, I don't think it's a huge downgrade for Matt Ryan. I do think he's actually going to be more aggressive. He's got better arm talent right now than Matt Ryan does. So what's your thoughts on Nick Foles and the impact on the Indianapolis Colts offense?
The one thing that worries me about the Colts offense is their offensive line. And Nick Foles behind that offensive line. They're the 21st PFF rated offensive line. Quentin Nelson, who is the only Indianapolis player that got selected to the Pro Bowl, has given up more sacks this year than he has in his 3 years combined playing. So Foles is going to have to get rid of the ball fast, or he's going to have to scramble a lot. I am not playing either of the running backs because I don't know which one is going to be featured. Michael Pittman kind of interests me, but Michael Pittman is also a volume play. If he doesn't get double-digit targets, he's only had 2 touchdowns all season. So if he doesn't get double-digit targets and you're not in a PPR league and you're in a standard league, it's a no-go. I am lower on Nick Foles and Indianapolis Colts than I think most are, because he's Nick Foles and he's like the Super Bowl savior, But that was such a long time ago, and that was with Doug Peterson, and he has neither of those right now. The only one I think is seemingly viable is Pittman, except that he's going to run his routes against Michael Davis and Asante Samuel. And Asante Samuel is balling. Michael Davis, not so much. But that's like, choose your poison. I don't. It would behoove them to be a run game, but which running back is it going to be? So I'm out on Nick Foles. Offensive line sucks. He hasn't played all year. Can he get rid of the ball quick enough to overcome an unstable offensive line? And which one of his running backs is he going to start dumping the ball off to?
Yeah, I think you're right about the PPR thing with Pittman too, because Foles, if you look at the numbers, he doesn't throw for a lot of touchdowns. He hasn't done it recently. He throws like 1 touchdown a game. That's a crapshoot who that's going to be. But I just want to see though, Matt Ryan is not at this stage in his career. I can't imagine Nick Foles being a downgrade on Matt Ryan. He looks, he can't move. He has 0 zip on the ball. Like it's the 2 worst things you could be as a quarterback. No power, no push on the ball, and you can't run. Like I can't imagine Nick Foles being worse than that. But yeah, I do agree. He's a statue behind a bad offense. So you got Khalil Mack and company. I totally understand there. But here's another one of my crazy tight end ones here. Kylen Grayson might be out this week. The last time he missed a game, Jelani Woods went 8 for 98 against the Steelers. This week he gets an average matchup against the Chargers. I don't know if I'll ever do that, but man, I was digging deep when I saw Kyron Granson out. I was like, okay, Jelani. So maybe there it is as well. Let's jump down to Malik Willis. Wow. Okay, first of all, okay, he went 6 for 10 and 5 for 16 in his 2 games. Like, holy. So at this point, I think this is one of those where it impacts not only the Titans, but it also impacts the Texans, because in this game, it could be like 13-10. Like that might be the final score of this game, like 17-14 type stuff. I think, the Ryan Tannehill impact, it's just, you can't start any of the receiving corps. Forget it. I know Okongwu has been one of the guys we talked about a bunch. No freaking way. 6 for 10 and 5 for 16. But I do think it brings down the Houston Texans guys as well, even though there's not many guys. Brandon Cook should be back. The only guy that is probably safe is Derrick Henry. He went 32 for 219 and 2 and 17 for 115 and 2. So those are the 2 starts with Malik Willis. He went bonkers. Trust me, the Titans need to win this game. They cannot lose. So they need to win. If they lose this game, they're in a tie with the Jags for the lead in the division. And then they have to face the Jags and could be knocked out of the playoffs completely. So I think overall, the only guy I'm touching in this entire game is Derrick Henry. Is there any other insights you want to give us, Gladys, on Malik Willis's impact with the Titans?
Not really. I mean, there's not really much to say about him. I feel bad for him. They played Houston October 30th. He went 6 for 10, 55 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was sacked 3 times. He had 5 carries for 12 yards. He ended up with a 35.4 QBR rating. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't nice. Derrick Henry, and even though they know, like everyone in the universe knows, like I've been listening to a podcast today on like DFS players, and they're all like, oh yeah, Derrick Henry. Everyone's going to play Derrick Henry. Everyone in this known universe, everyone in the multiverse knows Derrick Henry is going to be the one who gets the ball like 100,000 times.
Doctor Strange is going to have him on his DFS lineups. Come on.
Exactly. Because that's all you got in this game. I want to say that Brandon Cooks is supposed to play, and Brandon Cooks is playing for next year. So I can see them trying to, because they don't have a run game. I mean, and they're going to have to keep up with Derrick Henry. It's going to be such a slow plodding game, though. I don't even know who's going to watch it or who could stand to watch it. So the only thing I have 2 words: Derrick Henry. Sorry, Malik.
All right. That's all good, man. And listen, it's tough, especially if you had Shea Okongwu, who's been doing really well and they got Traylon Burks coming back too potentially. It's unfortunate.
Why?
Anyway, yeah. Philadelphia Eagles, Gardner Minshew. Now this one's a little fun. I like this one. This is fun. Like Jalen Hurts is a stud. The guy's an MVP candidate, but Gardner Minshew's just a lot of fun to watch. The guy's out of his mind. Got the stash going, the long locks. You know, he had a little fun with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was Trevor Lawrence before Trevor Lawrence. Folks. Yeah. But here's some interesting things I thought with Gardner Minshew. Now, listen, DJ Chark in 2019 had a very big season with him. In 2020, he kind of moved away from Chark and more to Keelan Cole. And one of the things I noticed is that he does tend to target the middle of the field more. Jalen Hurts is one of those very few quarterbacks that is actually almost 50-50 outside in the slot. He does like to target the perimeter more than most quarterbacks, which is good for Brown and Smith. Minshew is not really like that. He's more of the normal 60-40 guy. He will target the middle of the field a little bit more. In the game last year in 2021, when he played the Jets, he went 20 for 25, 242 and 2. So I think he's a solid play. They blew the doors off the Jets. They got a good matchup against the Dallas Cowboys. That could be a fun game for him. So if I'm going to stream if I'm a Jalen Hurts owner, I wouldn't even mind starting Gardner Minshew necessarily. But what I thought was notable was Dallas Goedert, 6 for 105 and 2. The running backs, 8 receptions in that game as well. I do think Gardner Minshew might throw a little bit more to his running backs and tight ends than Jalen Hurts does. So I do think it's a little bit of a bump for Miles Sanders. He might get an extra target or 2. I also think in goal line situations, you'll see Miles Sanders get the ball. I do like Dallas Goedert a lot. I don't think A.J. Brown is a fade. I'm just saying maybe he's more of a wide receiver 2 than a wide receiver 1 this week. Same thing with Smith, maybe more of a wide receiver 3. What's your thoughts on Gardner Minshew's impact on this offense?
I think that Smith is a fade mainly because Goddard's back. If Goddard is back in full health, because I think Minshew is going to target Dallas Goedert a lot, or whoever is playing tight end in that game. But like you said, last year when the 2 games they played together, Minshew 105 yards, 2 touchdowns went to Dallas Goedert. So that's his man. Miles Sanders, I like. He had a really bad game last week, but I can see them wanting to. Philly's like a run offense anyway. I can see Goddard not only handing the ball off to Sanders, but also throwing to Sanders too. So I think his floor has risen slightly because he's not competing with Jalen Hurts. So Sanders' floor is risen. Dallas Goedert, if he's healthy, like I think he was supposed to come back last week and then they held him out, which to me seems that he is a little more healthier than we think. So Dallas Goedert and Sanders are the 2 I think are going to get the best bump. A.J. Brown is 6th in yards after catch. So if I can see him getting like 2 passes and getting 2 touchdowns. Like I'm not fading A.J. Brown. The only one I would fade on that offense is Devontae Smith, and only because I think he's competing with Dallas Goedert, and I don't think he'll win in that competition for targets.
According to Sports Injury Central, Dallas Goedert is ranked at 86, which is very good. Means he's actually pretty healthy. They're expecting him to play a full amount of snaps, so we'll see from there. Let's talk about.
Did you pick him up? Did you pick him up?
Oh God, no, I couldn't. He was on every team. Gladys, trust me, we wouldn't even be having a discussion right now if Dallas Goedert was available. I would have scooped him up. I would have paid money for him. I would have sent a Christmas card to his family if he was available, but he was not. So unfortunately, I will not. Let's talk about some quick slants really quick.
Okay.
Maybe grab one or two of these guys. But first off, I want to just bring a couple guys up. Tyler Huntley played the last 3 games essentially, missed a little bit of time in the second one. I think the only guy that's really notable there is Mark Andrews. The Falcons do allow the 6th most points to tight ends this season. So maybe I think I'm okay with Mark Andrews, but I'm not going to start anybody else. Desmond Ridder, his first start went 13 for 26 for 97 yards, but 7 catches for 70 yards for Drake London. This week he gets a Ravens team that's more of an out-funnel defense and no Marcus Peters, so there could be something there. I actually don't mind him as a wide receiver 3 play. I think Desmond Ridder gets it. Just throw it to freaking Drake London. Brock Purdy, 3 games as a starter. He's got 2 touchdowns in every start, over 210 yards in 2 of those games. His target distribution's 19 for CMC, 16 for Brandon Ayuk, 13 for George Kittle. Production has been very good for all those guys. CMC seems to be benefiting the most from him. And the Commanders have really improved on defense. They do get Chase Young. That game should be really tight over there as well, but they are beatable with pass-catching RBs. So I think it's a little bit tougher for Kittle and Ayuk than it is for CMC, but it's hard to get away from a guy like Kittle, especially. Mayfield, 2 games that he's played so far. The Raiders game, Cinderella, throws the touchdown late. Awesome. Oh, he comes right back down the earth against the Packers, 111 yards, 1 score. Denver is more vulnerable to slot receivers and tight ends than they are out wide with their good perimeter cornerbacks. But Tutu Atwell, believe it or not, 13 targets over the last 2 weeks for Baker Mayfield. Tyler Higbee last week, 4 for 27 and 1. I don't think maybe Tutu Atwell could be like a DFS dart throw. I do not trust him in season long. Tyler Higbee, though, love to get your thoughts if he's a potential low-end tight end 1 this week. And finally, Sam Darnold, the last 3 games. His impact hasn't turned the ball over, but a lot of ball control. 19 attempts, 24 and 23. They are not throwing the ball a lot. He's got 1 touchdown, no interceptions in every single game. DJ Moore, though, has been solid. 9 catches for 176 yards, 2 touchdowns. The Lions have allowed the 4th most fantasy points to wide receivers over the last 6 weeks. So, feel free to talk about who you want, but I do feel like I am curious to get your thoughts on maybe DJ Moore, Tyler Higbee, the San Francisco situation, Drake London, and Mark Andrews.
Okay, that's pretty much all of them.
Hey, whatever. I'm just going to kick back now. Now talk to me, Gladys.
Okay, so here's the thing. Sam Darnold has the best matchup. Unfortunately, Sam Darnold is not as trustworthy as we wish Sam Darnold could be. However, I do think that DJ Moore has a good for DFS. So I would play him. I don't think I'd play him in season long. Desmond Ridder targeted 43% of his targets went to Drake London last week. He had 11 targets, and Ridder threw 26. He had 26. Ridder had 26 attempts, 13 completions. 11 of those 13s were Drake London's. So if you have Drake London, I would play Drake London. I mean, if we know if he's gonna pass, we know where it's gonna go. It's gonna go to Drake London, and I have no problem with that. Tyler Huntley and Mark Andrews, I think, is a DFS stack. I like it because I think Huntley is going to have to start running. Brock Purdy, this is the toughest defense that he has to face. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to fold like a prom dress, but I'm just saying that Montez Sweat and Chase Young are what?
Why did prom dresses fold?
When you take them off,
you had to. I didn't know. I didn't wear a prom dress. I'm not saying you
did
can't. I did not. I thought back in high school I didn't have a prom date, so I didn't go.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
So, CMC is always in play. Like I don't even know why you wouldn't. I don't even know why I didn't draft him. I'm really hating myself right now when I think about it. Thanks for that flashback. But Oh, because he was in Carolina. That's why I didn't draft him. But Brock Purdy, this is the hardest defense that Brock Purdy will face. And he has like the least amount of throws past the 20-yard line. So it's going to be a lot of CMC because Sweat and Young are going to be in his face all game long. We know that's going to happen. Tyler Higbee, I do not trust. I don't care. I don't care how many times Baker Mayfield thinks he looks his way. I don't trust Baker Mayfield either because, last game he looked really bad. But he was really cold. It was in Green Bay. They were a little cold. He every time you saw him, he was like bundled up in his parka or whatever. But Tyler, he was on the sideline. They had him like every time they showed him, he was like bundled up like a little, like the kid from Christmas Story when he can't walk because he has all the clothes on. Yes,
it is Christmas time, so I like it. I like that.
All right,
good call.
Thanks. So out of our notable changes, Tyler Huntley and Mark Andrews, I like. Desmond Ridder, I'm not particularly fond of, but I do like Drake London. Brock Purdy, I like CMC, not Brock Purdy. Baker Mayfield, no, big no. Sam Darnold, I would play Sam Darnold on a dart throw in DFS with DJ Moore because it's a great matchup. Detroit Lions, they're going to have to keep up with Detroit. I mean, I don't think Carolina's still in the hunt, right? Because they lost that game. They're not playoff people.
That NFC South, man, I do think they're all still involved because like the Tampa Bay keeps losing.
Sad.
Tampa Bay keeps losing, so I think it is. I think everyone's still alive somehow. Yeah.
So they're gonna have to keep up with Detroit, and Detroit knows they're still alive. And Goff isn't really great away from home, but he was manageable last week, and it kept his team in the game, and they won. And in order for Carolina to keep up with them, it's not going to be Deontay Foreman. It's going to be DJ Moore and Sam Darnold who have to do the job.
I think the Carolina Panthers got to hope for the same exact type of game the Jets just had, in the sense that, road golf comes up. Road golf is kind of boring. He doesn't have a big game, and the game's like 17-20, and they have a shot late to, tie or win the game. I know we talked about Tommy Tremble a couple weeks ago, and deep down in my soul, I would love to play him against Detroit because Detroit's one of the best matchups, but I could never recommend Tommy Tremble. I might just for $1 just put him in a DFS. That's all I can say. I took a shot on him, but that's all I will about it. It's pretty bad. All right. That's it, folks. That's all we got for today. As a reminder, we do have the Sunday Live Start Situ will be tomorrow, Saturday, December 24th, because all the games are tomorrow. So we'll be on for about an hour, starting at 8:30 a.m. PST. So join us for the Saturday Live Start Situ. I like it. Saturday Live, a lot more fun. Christmas Eve. Bring your toys. Bring everything. Santa will probably show up. I don't even know. Rudolph, off the show from last year's antics. We can't have him on again, unfortunately. The Grinch will probably be involved. We love it all. But thanks for joining once again. It's the Razzball Fantasy podcast on the Razzball Fantasy YouTube channel. Make sure you jump and subscribe to the Razzball Fantasy YouTube channel, also IG and TikTok. And, of course, make sure you go to razzball.com. And finally, go follow Gladys. Follow her, Gladys L. Tyler, on Twitter. Thank you for joining once again. I'm your host, Bobby Lamarco. We are out of here, folks.